Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 18.4.1 released to the public a few weeks ago, and iOS 18.5 Beta 4 released a few days ago. But there's even more to talk about since the iOS 18.5 Beta 4 is out What's New video. We'll talk about features and what to expect next, as well as some Apple news, and also the overall experience. I've been using it full-time on the iPhone 16 Pro Max and iPad Pro, and we'll talk about not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll on the posts page. You'll see we have 8,100 votes or more with 107 comments. I've gone through every comment to see what the overall experience is like on both versions. So be sure to stick around toward the end of the video where I'll read some of your comments as well. Apple had their earnings call this week for the quarter earning, and they made $95.4 billion with a profit of $28.4 billion. That's pretty typical around this time of year, huge sales numbers, and it doesn't look like they've been affected very much lately. On the call, Tim Cook spoke about Apple Intelligence and said that we're making progress and we look forward to getting these features into customers' hands, and also that it's just taking a bit longer than we thought. So it looks like they're working in the right direction, trying to get things finished. Apple is losing in many ways this year so far, but this time around there's been a massive improvement for many developers, according to them. Apple recently lost a major lawsuit regarding the App Store that's been ongoing for some time. However, this time around, Apple's loss actually benefits many consumers as well. Epic Games won against Apple, where Apple was found to be in violation of a requirement from 2021 where they were supposed to allow third-party purchase options from developers for direct-to-consumer sale. Because of this, Epic Games will now bring Fortnite back to iOS, according to Tim Sweeney, as long as Apple extends the court's friction-free Apple tax-free framework worldwide. They said they'll return Fortnite to the App Store within a week or so, as long as that's held up. So we'll see what happens, and Apple has said they're going to comply with the ruling, but said they strongly disagree with it. Apple is also being ordered to pay the EU for fines, as well as the UK, so lots of things going on, and Apple's really going to have to open up iOS, it looks like, based on a lot of these different fines and things. Spotify is also going along with what happened, as well as Patreon, offering new apps to allow for purchase options outside the Apple Store, where Apple will no longer retain 30% of the profit. Now, Apple does need to pay for different servers and things and serving all of that data, so I'm sure they'll work this out, but it looks like you can offer third-party options outside the App Store now. There's also a new massive win for developers, and internally right now, Apple is teaming up with Anthropic on coding for the internal employees, which could be a massive improvement to the coding, helping them sort of write code and getting things done. What this means in the long run for third-party developers, we don't know, but this is a move in the right direction, as many people seem to be relieved about this. Google's CEO has also now hinted that Apple will feature built-in Gemini support in iOS 19. So under Apple Intelligence and Siri, just how we have ChatGPT, it's been long rumored that we'll have Gemini. Gemini is great, however it's not private like Apple is with Apple Intelligence, but ChatGPT offers an alternative, and Gemini would be another alternative. So that would be great. I use it all the time myself and find it to be super helpful with different things. As far as features, well, iOS 18.5 so far has been fairly minor as far as features go. We're getting some updates in Mail, we're getting a few changes here and there, possibly some wallpaper updates. So if we go into our wallpaper, we could see some updates with things such as Pride, as well as 2 new wallpaper that were unexpected that were found in the code. However, most of the updates seem to be major bug fixes, and this is great news and again another huge improvement. I was also able to test a recent feature with Starlink satellite connectivity in beta, as I was in an area without satellite signal last week. Nothing really changed for me as I was driving, but a message showed on my screen and I captured it on my phone. And you'll see here it says T-Mobile, you've automatically connected to T-Mobile Starlink beta. While connected, you can send and receive texts via satellite, including texts to 911 from virtually anywhere. So that's something that connected. You'll see it said 5G. I had full bars and it connected. So that's something I didn't really expect, and it connected at some point and then disconnected and switched back to 5G when I had it. Now, with Apple's release this week of iOS 18.5 Beta 4, they released release notes far later than they normally do. I believe even the next day or maybe later in the day, but you'll see a couple things here where they resolved some issues with the Apple Vision Pro app, but we have a new feature with broadcast extensions. It says broadcast extensions now have a higher per process memory limit. This should enable capturing and streaming content at higher quality if the system resources are available. So this is available to developers, it should help out, and then basically everything else is similar with HVF resolved issues, security resolved issues, Siri known issues, which is the same as beta 3, and then writing tools resolved issues and StoreKit. So not a huge change there, but there was that one change with the feature update. As far as the iPhone 17 Pro and all the different models, we recently see more and more from Sonny Dixon posting what they could look like, but now I have them in hand. You can see the models here. I showed them in a different video, but this is the iPhone 17 Air model and the iPhone 17 Pro Max model. The Air shows how thin it really is compared to something else. So for example, here is the iPad Pro M4, and this shows the overall thickness or thinness. It's basically the same, slightly thicker, but not very much. So incredibly thin, hopefully as rigid as the iPad Pro, but this gives you an idea of the overall size. So unbelievably thin to hold, and something that we haven't experienced. We don't really need it per se, but it is something that's definitely maybe innovative as far as what they've done internally, but we'll have to wait and see as far as that goes. Of course, the 17 Pro Max has this huge camera bar on it as well, and some of these details are probably not 100% as they could change them. We should have MagSafe and more, but this gives you an idea of what to expect. So this camera bar or camera tray could house something such as thermal cooling, maybe make more room for batteries or something else, but we don't really know what that means yet. Now, as far as iOS 19, we of course expect different devices such as the new phones to be supported, but Apple is already working on future versions of iOS 19 according to Mac Rumors. They noticed that someone is using iOS 19.4 who visited their sites based on their website analytics. So we see this when new updates are in the works, and it looks like they're already testing 19.4. Stage Manager could also help bring multitasking in the way many people want with split view, so we could see some changes there. Now, Apple has continued to lose on multiple fronts, as it has become larger and would appear to be more complacent, but it seems they're making the right changes internally to finally get things moving in the right direction. Updated iPhones will hopefully change that with the models I showed you, maybe some innovation with folding phones, different things we haven't seen before next year, and make it feel basically fresh and new again. Of course, we're expecting an anniversary iPhone as well for the 20th anniversary. iOS 19 could make everything feel better, fresh, new, and stable, so we'll have to wait and see what they do with that. As far as releases this week, well, Apple stopped signing iOS 18.4, I've mentioned before, where I thought maybe we could see an iOS 18.4.2, but that really depends on what they do this week with releases. So coming this week, we could see a release of iOS 18.5 RC on the 5th. If we see the RC, I don't expect iOS 18.4.2, but if we see beta 5, maybe we could see that. However, if we have iOS 18.5 RC on the Monday the 5th, we could see the public release on the 12th, and then iOS 18.6 betas after that. Of course, iOS 19 is just a few weeks away from seeing beta 1 at least on June 9th, with a public release typically in September after all the betas through the summer. So maybe the second or third week of September, that's when we can expect to see that. So lots going on, lots of things that we expect, and lots of exciting things coming soon with new hardware, new software, and much more. When it comes to the iOS 18.4.1 experience, overall it's very smooth, but it still has the issues I've talked about in depth in different videos. It's smooth overall as far as using it, but then you have occasional micro stutters, touch bugs, and that odd issue with iPad 11th Gen with the A16 processor, where it will just turn off Wi-Fi altogether. It shuts off, you can turn it back on, and then sometimes it randomly turns off. It seems to be a well-known issue. There's some delays when pressing an icon, there's some issues with CarPlay still, even though they supposedly fixed it, and there's some other odd issues here and there. But for the most part, it's getting much better. But with the iOS 18.5 experience, there's a significant improvement, and this is a very good sign. In fact, there's a massive improvement in one area we'll talk about in a moment. CarPlay is now working properly for many people where it didn't in 18.4.1, even though they fixed it. AirDrop seems to be fixed for me now, so if we go in and maybe I send this one to another phone here, we'll send it over to, well, this is on 18.4.1. You'll see it was nice and fast there, opened up, went right into it. No issues there now, finally. Also, there's no issues with Siri. It seems like it's no longer reverting back to the old style, even though it's downloading. Wi-Fi HotSpot is working, and the only bug I've seen so far, really for me, is the wallpaper dimming bug. Sometimes people say it's fixed. You'll see it desaturated there. Some people said if you go into your settings, change some things. I've tried all of the suggestions, customizations, and it's just not working. So it's still a bug, and maybe it'll be fixed in iOS 19 or maybe never at this point. Some people are seeing some lockups, but the only other thing I've seen really has to do with overall AirPods. And with AirPods in particular, I don't know if this is an issue with the AirPods themselves or with the iPhone, they're disconnecting. You'll see they connected nice and fast there, but sometimes I'll be using them and they just seem to be a little bit more buggy than typical. So I'm not sure what that is. I don't know if that's iOS, macOS, or something they changed there. As far as performance, it fixed everything with performance. I have no issues whatsoever on iOS 18.5 Beta 4, and I'm seeing similar responses from others. So going into the app library, for example, scrolling using ProMotion, it ramps up to 80 Hz or 120 Hz, depending on how long you're scrolling, or slows down. But many people show that it's working properly. If you go into things such as music, it loads nice and fast. Again, it's nice and smooth. Going into things that are important, such as the camera, nice and fast again. So no issues whatsoever there. They fixed a lot of issues with this time around. When it comes to heat, it's very cool to the touch now. And now I don't have my thermal camera, but I do have a temperature monitor here. So if we go and take a look here, we're at the hottest point on iOS 18.5 Beta 4, 88.5 degrees Fahrenheit, or 31 to 32 degrees Celsius. On 18.4.1 in the hottest area, 29.8 Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's staying nice and cool overall. Both are actually doing pretty well, but 18.5 is even better. As far as the overall battery, well, this is where there's a massive improvement with 18.5. But first, let's see what 18.4.1 is doing. Now on iOS 18.4.1, thanks to Connor for sending this in, you'll see screen active time is at 7 hours and 38 minutes on an iPhone 16 Pro with 100% battery health, 4 hours and 37 minutes of screen idle time using 100% of the battery. This is better than I've seen on just about any iPhone 16 Pro. When it comes to iOS 18.5, though, this is where there's a massive improvement for me. If we go to battery health, you'll see I'm at 100% with 188 cycles. You can see more with coconut battery here. And as far as battery life, let's take a look. So you'll see today, 1 hour and 52 minutes, but if we go back a couple days or yesterday, I only used 50% of my battery and had 4 hours and 29 minutes of screen active time at 2 hours and 32 minutes of screen idle time. I've never seen battery life like this on any of the more recent betas. Overall, it's very good. You'll see here before I was on iOS 18.5 Beta 4, 4 hours was about all I was getting. Now I'm getting double that, or more than double. So this is a massive improvement for me, and I'm glad to finally see it fixed on my own device. When it comes to benchmarks, I did run those, so let's go ahead and take a look. Benchmarks completed, and you can see the first 3 devices, the M4 iPad Pro, iPhone 11, and iPhone 16 Pro Max, are running iOS 18.5 Beta 4 or iPadOS 18.5 Beta 4, and then we have iOS 18.4.1. Overall, the scores are pretty good, especially on iOS 18.5 Beta 4 with 3,498 for single-core, 8,631 for multi-core. Definitely better than we've seen in quite some time, and these are great scores overall, well within the high end of the margin of error, so definitely pretty good. Now, as far as the overall experience and what you had to say, let's take a look at some of your comments. Calvin H4682 said, I've been running iOS 18.4.1 on my iPhone 12 Pro Max for well over 2 weeks now without encountering any issues of note. By the way, I also had my battery replaced about a week ago at the Apple Store. Battery health and battery life have gone from okay to excellent, no overheating issues, no network connectivity issues, nor Bluetooth AirPods Pro 2 connection issues. Browsing is excellent, apps open and close smoothly without any latency. Everything is just fine. Lloyd Mayersk said, 18.4.1 battery has been incredible, but there are stutters here and there. Also, there is a bug when you changed from dark to tinted icons. Some icons don't go back and stay on tinted. Lokman Syed said, iOS 18.5 Beta 4 on my iPhone 16 Pro Max has been extremely stable. This is the first beta. I haven't experienced any bugs. Battery life has been a significant improvement. Everything just feels really stable. Chad Smith 3722 said, running iOS 18.5 Beta 4 on my iPhone 15 Pro Max. The only issue I had is with Apple CarPlay. When I ask Siri to send a message, it takes my message but freezes when it would usually read the message back. I then have to cancel the app. I can't get it to send a message when I try. Keniak52 said, "Hi Aaron, I'm running iOS 18.5 Beta 4 on my iPhone 15 Pro Max. I have not had any issues and had excellent battery." Mustafa X5V1J said, "I'm on iOS 18.5 Developer Beta 4 on iPhone 13 and iPadOS 18.5 Beta 4 on iPad 9th generation. Battery life is good and the whole update is very stable. I'm excited for the RC." Seymour24 said, "My iPhone 16 Pro, iOS 18.5 Beta 4. Update seems to be a lot more stable, especially with CarPlay. I have to use wired and it's not disconnecting every couple of seconds or minutes, and I don't have to unplug and plug it back in. Can't wait for iOS 19 Beta 1 at WWDC." Now let's go ahead and take a look at storage, since I didn't talk about that in the What's New video. We'll give it just a second here. And if we scroll down to the bottom, you can see iOS is now taking up less space, where Apple Intelligence is now 6.28 gigabytes compared to 6.87, and the overall OS is 18.66 gigabytes compared to 19.23 gigabytes. Maybe it's because it's more efficient code or they've gotten rid of some things, but either way, it's using less storage as far as that goes. Now, when it comes to iOS 18.6 and future updates with iOS 18, I would not expect any more features. Apple is focused on iOS 19, and they're going to put their effort there with new features and changes. So anything they probably had planned with iOS 18 has been moved to iOS 19, and of course, we really hope they're working on stability, multitasking, and a few other things. Let me know what you want most from iOS 19 in the comments below. So that's everything with iOS 18.4.1 and iOS 18.5 Beta 4. Hopefully we get iOS 18.5 RC as soon as this week, and then of course next week iOS 18.5 could release to the public. Let me know what you're looking most forward to in the comments below, and of course I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time. Oh, and if you're wondering why I wasn't wearing my Apple Watch on my wrist, well, I actually hurt my wrist using the Apple Watch. It pushed into it very hard when I was riding the jet ski and bruised this area. I'm not sure how I did that, but either way, it's still sore, and so I'll be wearing this probably in a week or so, but just wanted to let you know if you were wondering.